Hello and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. So here I am again on the Eastern Front, naturally. And as you can see, I've got the game finally set up. I got some questions posted on Board Game Geek and got them answered by Ray Weiss, who is the designer for the game. It seems to be the one man, not I'm going to say the one man show, but the main man for CSL. And talked about a few things here, got some things discussed and looked at. So he responded very quickly, and I just wanted to give a kudos to that. So I got everything set up. Now, the first thing you probably notice is, even with 140 counters, this is pretty it's pretty packed, it's pretty tight, it's pretty cluttered, which surprised me a little bit, but I mean, so far, okay, that's cool. I can live with that. So the main point of this video here tonight, though, is to take a look at the combat system in its basic format. Now, by basic format, I mean we're not talking about units that are going to be capable of reacting, that have a zone of influence, which basically is your mechanized units in this game for both sides, because this is the opening turn, and on the opening turn, the Russian forces have neither a zone of influence or a zone of control, and can't really even do anything on the first turn. But what I wanted to do with the purpose of this, since there's been some discussion about how complicated is the combat system, I just wanted to take this video, which I'm assuming is not going to be very long, and just kind of show you the basics of it. Because as I said before, both of my posts on Board Game Geek and the previous video, I really feel like this combat system is not any more complicated than when you first approach the ones that the great battles of the American, or the great campaigns rather, the American Civil War is based on. Like Grant Takes Command on to Richmond and things like that. Those ones, there's some similarities here, which you'll probably see. And those ones, quite frankly, are not that hard to get once you get into the rhythm of it and pick them up. It moves pretty quick. Okay. Now, up here in the upper corner, because this is really the only place you're allowed to do anything on the opening turn, is way up here in the far corner, because the Hungarians can't do anything till turn 2, and the Romanian troops down here, which I have set up, can't do anything too, which of course they're German friends there, either. So we're all focused up here in this little neck of the woods, getting ready for the Germans to break through, possibly here, in a little bit. Now you can see I've already done some combats. Now, in the game, you basically, again, like the great campaigns of the American Civil War, you activate a unit and you move it, and then you activate another one after that. So, technically you're supposed to rotate them, but I like to see things easier, a quick glance kind of thing, Napoleon's glance, if you will. And so I put the white dice on top to show which units I have already activated this turn. Okay? So I'm going to do just a basic combat, and again, I'm not pretending that, I'm, the son of Guderian or Manstein or something like that. I'm just going to show you, what I've been toying around with and stuff. And overall, this opening clunker play actually has been okay so far. Now, granted, there'll be a little more added to it and a little tougher slogging here once I get moving into deeper parts of it. But again, I just wanted to show you what the combat system looks like in action, if you will. Because I know that's been something that some folks have kind of been like, ooh, maybe this is a bit too complicated. So, sorry, when I said complicated, I thought of Avril Lavigne. Ugh. I used to teach. I taught middle school, and I remember when her first CD came out, and my students were just bouncing off the walls over that. So, it's funny how some little things just make you think of other things. Those little dominoes in your memory banks, Alright, enough about that. Yeesh. Let's move on. So what I'm going to do here is just show you the combat system, and also show you how I've been kind of working it to help myself get through it, if you will. Okay? So we're going to focus on this corner way up here. These two guys here, these two end ones. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and burst these guys through and then trying to exploit them down towards the south. Because, of course, naturally, being a German Barbarossa player, I'm thinking pocket, pocket, pocket. I've got a pocket full of Russian troops. Sorry, that's bad. that was another big one. Okay, moving along. So, here we go. So first of all, first thing you're going to do is you're going to total up the combat strength. Now again, these are the units I have here, and I'll just show you what I've got in this stack. Here I've got an 8, whoops, and there's a bunch, the Germans can stack up to 4 units in a hex. And again, in order for a unit to be ZOI capable, you only have to have 1 unit in that stack. So technically, you could take 1 Panzer and stack it with 3 infantry, and it's ZOI capable. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're, working through the game and stuff. I'll be curious to see, how that plays out when things start to get a little looser here, and you start to route units and push people around and do all that stuff. Okay, so there's the battle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back out, and I'm going to drop down here and show you my little workspace here, so to speak, how I've been resolving this, okay, step by step. So here we go. First thing is strength point determination, okay? So the Russians have a strength of 4. Each unit in the game just has 2 numbers, movement and strength. So there is their 4. They've got 4 for their combat strength. The German units that are there, let's see, they've got 12 and 12, they've got 24. So that's a little bit more than I have had in the past here. But again, I'll put this down. I'll put the 20, and then we'll put 4. So there's 24 strength points versus 4 strength points. Okay, nice, healthy, nice, healthy advantage. Okay, now terrain modifiers, you look at the terrain, both the hex side and the terrain itself. In this particular case, it's clear terrain, so there is nothing to worry about there. So there's no terrain modifiers to do here. Line of supply. Now line of supply would have to normally be checked, but of course this is the opening turn, so both sides easily have that. The line of supply really deals with railroads here, which is not unusual in an Eastern Front game. So, but both sides are clearly, with the starting positions and stuff, they're within their line of supply. Okay. Now combat matrix. Now this is where you kind of also get that little bit of a feel from the great campaigns of the American Civil War. So let me move you over here real quick, and let me show you that here on the player aid card. It's right here. So let me make sure, whoops, that's the wrong direction. Here we go. Alright, so basically as the attacker, you're going to spend movement points to both move into an enemy's hex, and then you're going to spend movement points to attack as well. Okay? Now, the defender is also going to pick a posture, a defensive thing, which is either delay, steadfast, or counterattack. And it tells you right here, like delay, you can use it in any non-clear terrain. Steadfast, which I've been using for the opening turn because, with Stalin and nobody receiving orders and everybody being like, hey man, we're being attacked, what do we do? Which, is, shoot you fools, maybe would be the proper answer, but not in Stalinist Russia. Everybody's scared to do anything. You can do all terrain, and then counterattack is only allowed in clear terrain. Now, counterattack does add an extra layer to the combat procedure, because then you can go ahead and the defender can counterattack, and then you have to kind of figure out who has the biggest loss points after that. So for this particular example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do, let's do a grand assault on this one. Maybe I'll try to do 2 combats real quick, and we'll see how that goes. So we'll try to grand assault. So that's 2 movement points, okay? So I spend 1 movement point to move into the hex because it's clear terrain. I ignore the river because special rules on turn 1, you ignore all of that. So that is a total of 3 movement points all together, okay? So I'm spending 2 there. Now they're steadfast. So the defender is going to get a +1 die roll modifier, but they also get a +1 loss point as well too. So for those kind of things, coming back over here to my little workstation, so for that kind of thing, what I've been doing is, again, using another die, in this particular case an 8-sided die, to show, okay, so they're going to get a +1 die roll modifier to their combat total. So there it is, +1 is what they'll get there, okay, according to the matrix. All right. Now, for the attacker side, because of the type of attack plan they chose, which was a Grand Assault, they will also get a modifier of +1. Okay? Whoops. Smacked my 20, didn't I? Yes, I did. What's your 20? My 20's upside down. That's my 20. Alright. Okay, so we've got the die roll modifiers worked out. Okay, and now there's some other die roll modifiers too, but again, line of supply, that doesn't apply here. We did the attacker plan. The defender's not demoralized. There's the yellow stripe on the back of every unit to show that they're demoralized. That doesn't exist. And we got it from the combat matrix already. So we are good to go from that perspective. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the combat results table. Now for the combat results table, and this is, again, you know, kind of like Great Campaigns in the American Civil War, both sides are going to roll a die. So let me just pull out here for a minute just to show you the combat table here. Okay, so again, it depends on how many strength points you have. And then it tells you how many dice you roll, 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so the Russians only have 4, so they're going to only roll 1 die with a +1 modifier. The Germans with 24 are way over here, so they're going to have 3d6 with a +4, or +1 modifier. So they're going to roll both sides here. So let's start with the Germans, or as Blackadder would say, the Germans. So we'll roll 3 dice. Ooh, not a good roll for the German Wehrmacht. Yikes. That Panzer Division is not so hot. And again, using the 6-sided dice, I'm going to put them down here. And that is my total for that. Now, the Russians will roll a single die, remember, because that's what it said, and they rolled a 5. Now, the Germans do have an air power counter that's used for the army group. For each one, after the first operation, you can either choose to shift your attack column let me try that again. Shift your strength point column 1 to the right, or you can re-roll 1 die, and then you must accept that particular outcome. Clearly here with what's happened, I'm going to choose to re-roll a die. So let's see if I can get something juicy. Obviously a 6 is what I would like, because the higher here in this game, the better. Come on, baby needs a brand new pair of shoes. Ouch. Well, baby going barefoot. Alright, so now let's consult the table here and see. So, the Germans rolled a 4. A 4! They inflicted 3 damage points, or loss points I should say, on the Russians. So, I've used this die to signify the loss points. The Russians, of course, rolled a 5. Or I'm sorry, actually it should be a 5. I forgot my +1 modifier. So it should be a 5. Let's see if that changed anything. Nope, it didn't. Now for, again, the Russians, it was 4 strength points. With a 6, it's 1. So they inflict 1 loss point on the Germans. So in other words, this is like the worst possible result you could have. Okay? So, now both sides will have to take losses here. Now half the losses, rounded down, have to be taken by the strongest unit. Now for the Russians, it's not a problem because they only have 1 unit there. And then of course the Germans, using only 1 loss point, they'll take it from whoever. I'll probably take it from one of my infantry dudes. Not to sound like General Spicoli's in charge. Oh, there's my dudes. But I'll take it from one of those. Okay. Now, whoever has the higher loss point total, or whoever has the 5. I'm having trouble talking tonight. I apologize. So, whoever inflicts the greatest pain on the other side, okay, is the winner. So in this particular case, it is the Germans. Not surprising, right? On June the 22nd, 1941. Okay, so the losers now will have to retreat, and they will basically have to retreat either 2 or 3 hexes, absorbing their losses, and then they're demoralized. Okay, so let's go from here, back up to the map, and let's zoom in on that little neck of the woods. There. Here we are. So, the Russian units that's there, actually, you know what, let's yeah, here we go. I'm trying to get this so I can come down on it a little bit more. There. See, isn't that better? I think it's better. Seems to be better. Oh, my camera doesn't go any higher. Okay, there we go. There. Most important thing is to show this area here. So, now you have 2 choices here. There's either the pads that come with this, Or, of course, there's also the markers. Myself, personally, I prefer these markers. So I'm going to put the 3 here, flip them over because they are demoralized, and I'm going to go ahead and retreat them 3 hexes. 1, 2, and 3, all the way back to here. Okay? So, this is where my force was, because remember, I moved into the hex. I should have really moved them into there and then done things from there. Now, the Germans took 1 shot, so I'm going to put that shot on their infantry. Okay? So there we go. Now, once combat is done, then you can have basically exploitation combat. However, one thing real quick before I do that, I got to see if the air power is available for the rest of this turn. So basically, to determine if German air power is still available for the rest of the turn, I roll 2 dice, and then 2 plus whatever the turn number is. If I roll less than that, it's not available. So right now it's turn 1, 2 plus 1 is 3, so only Snake Eyes will take away the Luftwaffe from me. Of course, you all know what's probably in that dice tower right now, right? Oh, it's a 10. I was wrong. Yep, I was wrong. It's a 10. There it is. Did it show up? There, it's a 10. I can prove it. Okay. Alright, so, no problem with the Luftwaffe. Okay? Now, exploitation, what you do with that is you're going to figure out the movement value of each unit based on its type. So infantry, mechanized motorized infantry, and armor. Now, when you activate a stack that is exploiting, you can break them off into smaller groups first. So like if I want to move the infantry first by itself, then move the mechanized, then move the armor, I can do that. Or I can move them all together as one giant stack. It's up to me. Since the Russians have no zone of control and can't go anywhere this first turn, I do believe it's in my best interest to go ahead and split everybody off here. So how do we calculate this out? Well, it's pretty easy actually to do that. It's not as complicated as it seems. And again, once you get the hang of this, it seems to, or in my opinion anyway, it rolls along pretty well once you get the hang of it. Okay? So let's take the infantry. I'm going to split off the 2 German infantry divisions first. Okay? So an infantry division gets 0 movement points, okay, for exploitation by itself. But you take the value, which is 0, and then add the number of movement points you spent on the attack plan. Now we spent 2 because we launched a grand assault. Okay. Ooh, speaking of which, this Russian unit actually, whoops, sorry, they suffered 4 losses, so they're routed. They're removed from the map. I almost forgot about that +1 loss point for the Russians. So a unit, whenever it reaches its maximum capacity, so to speak, it goes into a routed box, which is supposed to be on the player aid card, but actually doesn't exist. Yes, one of the few minor hiccups here with this game. Notice though, even though the video I posted yesterday with some of the hiccups, I'm still at it. And part of the reason I'm still at it is I'm still very intrigued by this whole system. You know, I'm very curious to see how it all flows together. Okay. All right. So let me start with my infantry. So they're going to get 2 movement points worth of action here. Okay. So I'm going to take my 2 infantry dudes that are here. I'll leave my armor and mechanized guys behind, and they can move 2. So what I think I'll do with them is I'll march them down this way. 1, 2, so then they can work on trying to create more of a pocket. And then that's it. That's the end of them for their activation for this turn. Okay? Now, I've got a mechanized unit there, and they get 1 plus 2, which is 3. So what I think I'll do with them is, let's see, woods. Woods only cost 1 movement point. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, since they get 3 movement points, I'm going to go ahead and take them, and I'm going to move them down. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and swing them down this way to here. Okay. Now, if I had 1 more movement point, I could have moved them into this hex where this demoralized unit is, and I can still attack because there is the meeting engagement option, which requires 0 movement points. So if I had that 4th movement point, I can move into that hex that's right there with this Soviet unit here, okay? And I could have launched a meeting engagement style of attack, which obviously, to make a parallel with the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, that would be like a hasty attack. You know, where, you know, there's obviously, it's not as organized, there's not as many benefits and stuff to the attacker, etc. Okay, so those guys have moved. So I'm going to leave them where they're at. Where it's at? Okay, now I still have, what Panzer Division is this up here? 16th. I still got 16th Panzer Division. Okay, now armored divisions get 2 plus the movement points I spent on the attack plan. So that gives me 4 exploitation movement points. So I could either come down, let me make sure I'm getting enough of this here. Let me come back just a tiny bit. There we go. So I could come down this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could enter Rovno and launch one of those meeting engagements if I wanted to. Or I could go 1, 2, 3, 4 and also launch a meeting engagement there. Or I could attack this 4-4 infantry unit here as well. Okay, so basically combat is connected to movement here. You activate each stack, and then when they're done, you move on to the next stack. Okay, so I'll tell you what. For the purposes of this video, let me just go ahead and I'll go 1, 2, 3. That's true. I need to concern myself with supply though, because I'll be outrunning my supply for sure if I go all the way down there. You know what? Screw it. Let's do it. Just for this is my clunker play, and I always call it clunker play when I do it the first time because it is. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like when you first learn to drive a stick shift. You know, if you've done that in your life, maybe you haven't. I mean, you know, if you only know automatic transmissions, I don't know how many stick shifts are left out there, or how many modern cars, if you will, are made with them. So anyway, so I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll go 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to enter the hex 4. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do this meeting engagement here in the town. Now I will be out of supply, so I do need to consider that problem. And there's another part of that problem which we'll deal with here in a minute, which is attrition. Attrition is basically impacted, or units are impacted by attrition whenever you're out of supply at the end of your operation phase here. Okay, so here we go. So again, just for the heck of it, we're going to go ahead and do this. Okay? So again, just going over the steps real briskly here. Okay. Okay, so strength point. So the 16th Panzer has 8 points for attack. And the defending Soviet unit, whoops, wrong spot, has 5. Okay, so this is obviously a much closer combat here. Okay, so there we go. 8, whoops, sorry, it rolled on me there. So 8 versus 5. Okay, now, terrain modifiers. Now this is a small town, okay, and the only thing it says here for combat is for attrition rolls. Well, there's no attrition here roll here to deal with at this point, so we don't have to worry about that for a town or a city. That's a town, okay. Yeah, towns and cities, and then major cities. Yeah, see again, the terrain key, we need that. But clearly that little white circle has just got to be a town. It has to be. It's just, yeah. Okay. LOS assessment. Now, this is where I'm going to end up with a little bit of a problem here for my 16th pencil. I'm going to have to subtract 2 because I don't have my line of supply. I'm pretty sure I'm too far away from it, and I don't think there's a special rule that means I could ignore let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about I don't have to listen to supply on the opening turn. Okay. So non-rail path up to 3 hexes, trace from unit to a railroad hex. I know I'm too far away because there's no way there's a railroad over here. This is the closest railroad. So 1, 2, yeah, they can't. They're too far away. But again, for the purposes of this, I don't really care. Alright, so that's going to be a -2 modifier, and with the meeting engagement, I'm also going to get a -1 modifier, so now I'm down to -3, yikes, for that. Okay. Now, of course, for defense, again, I'm always choosing the steadfast plan here, so that also means with the meeting engagement, my attacking 16th Panzer will end up with 1 extra step loss, yikes, so that can't be good. But let's see what happens. And again, the purpose of this is just to show you, you know, what the combat procedure seems like, or is like, I should say. Okay, so we've done the line assessment. We did the combat matrix. We've done our die roll modifiers. Okay, now it's time for the good old combat. Alright, so the Germans have 8 strength points, so they get 2d6. Well, at least I rolled high. I rolled a 10 for them. The Russians get just 1 die again, I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's the last column on the 1 die. They rolled pretty well too. That's a 4. Yikes. Okay. Now, I could use my Air Force, and I could chance it and try to make this higher, but you know what? I think I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not quite willing to risk that. Okay? So let's see what kind of losses we get here. Alright, so for the Russians, it's a 4. So that's a 1. So 1 loss inflicted on the Germans. The Germans, 10 minus 3. That's going to take us down to 7. 7 on 8 is 2. So that is 2 losses on the Wehrmacht. But remember that for the Germans, because it's a meeting engagement, we have to increase their losses by 1. So now both sides have 2 loss points. Now, I'll be honest, I'm going to have to check and see, okay, what's going to happen here with these 2 losses. So both sides absorb their losses. There's no counterattack here to concern myself with. Okay? Alright. The greater final. Well, no one has a greater final. 2 or more. Simple comparison. Well, we do have 2 or more. Okay? Let's see here now. Just reading this. There's diamond and heart symbols if it's less than 1 on that. I'm trying to see what happens in a tie. In a tie, the defender is the winner. So, hokey spoons. The attackers lost. 16th Panzer was rejected. Should have known that with the supply, right? You know, hey, you know, it's the first day of the war. Why not try and roll things here if you can? Okay. So now, however the loser is, it depends on basically who you are is what happens here. Okay. So if it's the attacker, as I recall, when it comes to losing, I have to retreat 1 hex. Okay, and can't go through an enemy zone of control, which is nothing to worry about for the Germans because, you know, there doesn't exist. So, the German force will take 2 step losses, and they're demoralized. Well, no, a meeting engagement, nobody gets demoralized out of. So, I guess that's the positive there. The Russians take 2 step losses too and stay intact. Okay? Alright, now, last thing here to look at is, well, I mean, it's not really related to combat, but I'll look at the attrition anyway for this particular situation. So let's go back up there towards the situation, and then we'll call it a day on this video, basically. So here's our situation here after the Soviets say, rejected the 16th Panzer Division. Okay? Alright, have to roll the attrition table if both... if you end your activation without a line of supply and expended more than half its available movement points when activated. Okay? Which I believe we did. But see, now I only used... What did I use before? Because I moved into that space. I used 3 of the 7. So technically that's not half. That's something to ask about. I mean, does that count with exploitation? Because then, of course, obviously I would have. But I guess technically for exploitation purposes, I did do more than half. That's something I'll have to check on in a little more detail here. But when that happens, we have to consult the attrition table, which is here. Okay, and the number of strength points I have left is 6. So I'm rolling 2d6. Let's see what happens there. Whoops, sorry about bumping the camera. Now, of course, I didn't roll for the Luftwaffe because I didn't use them. But on any subsequent combat where I do use them, I have to roll. And then I have to choose as well. So let's see what happens here. It's 2d6. Do I lose anybody? The answer is I rolled a 10. No, I do not. So 9, 10 is a dash. Okay. And then, of course, there are other modifiers too, like towns and cities. Obviously, those would help you. Single units, you get +1, which actually I would have had +1 because that was a single unit. And again, now the 16th Panzer Division is finished. So I'll put a white die on top of them, and now I'll go to my next activation. Okay? So there you have it. That's how the combat system works. Hopefully I did everything right. If the I'll post this on Board Game Geek, so if Mr. Weiss wants to, pretty sure it's his last name. Let me just double check. I don't like to mess people's names up. Yeah, if Mr. Weiss wants to weigh in and tell me if I did anything wrong here, that would be greatly appreciated, because that would be totally cool. With that, but again, I just wanted to show you this because I know, like I said, on the discussion threads and stuff on Board Game Geek, some people were like, well, is the combat super complicated? And again, keep in mind, as I'm showing this video, I'm explaining everything as I go, which takes time. But, again, I think once you get the hang of this and once you start to be like, okay, here we go, strength points, terrain, what plan did I choose? What's the defender's plan? Gyro modifier, I think it'll roll. I honestly don't think it's going to take any longer than the great campaigns in the American Civil War. Perhaps when you get into counterattacks and stuff, which, you can only do that with zone of influence capable units, so that won't happen all the time with that. And then counterattacks, I guess, as far as that goes. But that's just kind of the basic system, the basic steps of what you're doing here. Which again, and again, your mileage may vary. Maybe you're already looking at this going, no way, Tim. that is too complicated. It's like making me listen to Alvaro Levine. Well, okay, maybe so. But, and then, that's, if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea, and that's no big deal. A lot of people think Empire of the Sun is a terrific game, and actually I think it's a very good game too, but it's not my cup of tea. I prefer to play other games on the Pacific Theater. It's not for me, and that's cool. It doesn't have to be, just because you don't like a game doesn't mean that it sucks or it's broken or, it's crap. It just means, sometimes it just means that, hey, that's not my style, it doesn't fit me. So, anyway, so there you go. There's the combat system. For those of you who are curious, maybe on the fence about this, what you're thinking and stuff. Again, the board is a little more crowded than I anticipated. But we'll see once I get these panzers rolling around here. Let's see if I can crack some stuff loose once we start rolling in deep into Army Group South territory here. The other thing I will mention real quick here before I finish is if you're thinking, because I was thinking this at first too, being like, holy smoke, man, putting all 3 of these maps together, it's going to cover my table, if you remember from the unboxing video. I did notice when I opened up Army Group Center and Army Group North that there's some overlapping. Moscow shows up on the Army Group North map. So you are going to have some places, and I think Kiev, if I remember correctly, Kiev shows up on the Army Group Center map. So some of this is going to overlap. So in other words, it's not going to be as big as it might seem at first. So that's my parting thought there. Okay, so there you go. There's the combat system from the Damos Destroy All Monster Operational Series games from CSL. Alright, I'll keep plodding along with this. I'll come back at some point. And one other thing too. In the comments section, I would appreciate feedback. Let me know whether you like me doing the short videos like this or the videos that just focus on a little bit of things and, on a case-by-case, day-by-day sort of basis. Or you prefer, like, the videos I've done in the past where, I play this sucker, like, 2 or 3 times, and then, I go ahead and do a video to show you guys what the whole shebang looks like. I'm curious about that. I've just kind of approached this because this is a different system. It's fairly new. I think the first part of, I think these games were all just published in April, May this year, so not very old. So, again, so some feedback on that would be appreciated. What you guys think. You know, what you like better. You like the big videos that just do the whole shebang, or do you prefer these smaller chunk videos? Let me know what you think in the comments. So, this is Tim Korchner from Bare Bones Wargaming saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time somewhere, I'm sure, on the Endless Steppe as I head towards Kiev, Kharkov, and of course the ultimate prize, Rostov, which will put you in prime position to roll on down to those oil fields. It's all about that oil, so to speak. Black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, there's pandas over there. Sorry, that was bad. Alright, as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.